How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name's Josh Hutchinson, and I've got John Binkle with me here today, as usual. How you doing, buddy?
I'm excellent, man. I picked up a couple of Christmas gifts for myself over the last couple of days,
Ooh,
and they just came in. Got a Jumbo Joe Sharks sweater in from a
that is a
lady in
beautiful
Austin
sweater.
who wanted to talk to me all about Sharks hockey, which was super weird. And just in the mail today, I got a Nintendo 64 game, a
Ooh.
Ken Griffey Jr. baseball game that
Oh, I used to have that one.
I am a huge Ken Griffey Jr. fan. My dog's name is Griffey.
Oh, that's
Technically,
awesome.
his name is George Kenneth Griffey Jr., but we call him Griffey. So I'm a huge Ken Griffey Jr. fan. We'll touch on that later for the slight dig from Nate, I think.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so my wife, when we went to visit her family earlier this month, she got an N64 that she had forever, and I was like, "Oh, I got something for this."
That's awesome.
So I had to pick that up.
I totally had that game back circa 2000 or something like that. Yeah, that was in my N64 collection for sure. I wanted to touch on something before we get into everything. So back on the weekend pod, there's a very definitive conversation from Nate and Blake about Die Hard being a Christmas movie, and it was they seem to think that it definitely was. And if you remember on the last week's midweek pod, Binksy was very emphatic about the fact that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Now, I am not. I don't think I feel strongly one way or the other, but I definitely lean a little closer to Binksy on this side. So I wanted to give you a chance to rebut this for the weekend pod.
All right, so they both feel like it's a Christmas movie. This was part of Two Truths and a Lie, a game they've been playing, albeit the first one not so successfully on Nate's part. So I want to preface this by saying that I think Die Hard is a phenomenal movie. It spawned a chain of not so phenomenal movies. Stick tap to Bruce Willis and his ability to carry a terrible franchise. It is a fantastic action movie. All right.
Yeah.
I love Die Hard. I watch it every year at Christmas time. So maybe that's a demerit to my argument. But it is not a Christmas movie. It is a movie set in December. That's really all that it is. Nothing ties into Christmas about it except that the event happens during a business Christmas party. Like,
yep.
You know, like that's as close as it gets for me. And I will bring this caveat into the argument. The director of the movie says that it has all of the tenets of a Christmas movie and calls it a Christmas movie. But I feel like at this point, he's just playing to the audience and he wants people to watch it every year. So he gets those royalty checks. So
of course. Yeah.
But no, man, it's not a Christmas movie. Like it's an action movie. Like, no, it's terrible.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely with you there, man. Totally agree. Also, before we get into things, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that you and I are actually playing each other in our Keep 3 league that we do with Nate.
Are you absolutely demolishing me?
No, it's a very tight matchup. Actually, I'm up 9 points now, but that's like you're still like very much within striking distance. It's a very close matchup. That's
I'm not doing so well in that league. I'm almost doing as poorly as Raj is. So
that's the league I'm doing the best in for sure.
You and Nate are crushing it in that league.
I'm in first place.
At least some of y'all carrying the flag.
Oh well, I mean I can't say the same for the rest of my leagues. I've saved all of my good drafting for our Keep 3, but that's okay. Thanks again for leaving us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you haven't and you're enjoying our content, please just take a second to leave us a review. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, check out the Apples and Genos Discord server. It's a great place to talk fantasy hockey, get your questions answered, and also receive alerts for when new Apples and Genos content drops.
Like this show.
Like this show. That's right. This is Midweek Moves. It's Wednesday of week 11, and it's Christmas time. So there are 3 days this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, where there are no games whatsoever. And that's so 3 out of 7 days in between now and next week's midweek pod. There's absolutely no games. And there's only one off night left this week. So we're not going to focus too much on midweek moves or streams. We're just going to talk about some hot topics and answer some mailbag questions. I will talk a little bit about next week's schedule, just as a bit of a preview if you're thinking ahead. So next week, we're kicking things off. Monday is Boxing Day, no games. So then there are a bunch of really heavy nights and really light nights, as usual. A very NHL schedule. There are 4 teams with 4 games, but only one off night for each of them, and that's Buffalo, Chicago, Ottawa, and San Jose. Seattle and New Jersey both have 3 games, but they have 3 off nights, and that's going to be extremely valuable because those off nights they're just going to be super valuable to have those players on your team. So I would probably focus on them. Both those teams have very streamable players that have pretty good value that are playing in good spots in the lineup. Seattle, for example, Andre Burakovsky is their highest rostered player in Yahoo at 54% rostered, and the rest of the team's below 50. And that's a team that scores a ton of goals. So Seattle is a nice team to stream from. And even though New Jersey's struggling, they still have lots of players that are available. You know, your Dawson Mercers, your Sharon Goviches, all those guys. So can't really go wrong there. Anaheim and Philly are the teams you don't want to be streaming from. They only have 2 games next week, so I would kick those guys to the curb. Also, because Anaheim and Philly are bad.
Yeah, they stink.
So get rid of those guys.
So I'm a little bit trepidatious to stream Seattle players because I don't know about you, but it seems like I always pick the wrong one.
Wrong one.
I put up Burakovsky and Schwartz scores 2 goals, right?
Yeah.
I dropped Burakovsky and put in OBJ and Burakovsky. It gets 2 points in a game. Like I consistently pick the wrong player, both in daily formats and in streaming formats. So I am like 3 times bitten and 9 times shy of Seattle. But just like you said, I mean, it is a scoring team. I've been watching a lot of their games lately as they've been, obviously on the West Coast slate a lot recently. And they actually look really good. They're a super competitive team.
Totally.
And the forwards are producing. So I don't feel terrible about the team in general. My personal estimation of the players in a game-to-game basis has not been good. So that scares me a bit. I'll definitely be leaning on the Devils in that prime slate. And the player that I am going with, and perhaps don't listen to me because I've been wrong about Seattle, but has been Eric Halla. I really like his exposure on this second line with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt. Really, really, really undervalued player, and especially in terms of streams for the Devils. So he's been readily available for me, and maybe less so after people in these leagues that are listening know my strategy. But it's a player that I've got at the top of the list for streaming from the Devils.
Yeah, I'm totally with that. I like from Seattle, Jared McCann. If you can get Matty Beniers, he's a guy that you definitely want to pick up. He's a little bit higher rostered, 44%, I think, when I checked last. And then Jordan Eberle's been pretty good this year too.
Yeah.
McCann, I like him. He's playing on the top line now. He wasn't earlier in the year, so he's getting a few more minutes, and he, I believe, leads them in goals. So he's definitely a valuable guy. But yeah, let's move on to some hot topics. So it's a pretty good segue from us talking about the Devils and their nice schedule next week, because they've been pretty bad all of a sudden, just kind of out of nowhere. They've lost 6 in a row. So a lot of people asking, I don't know if people are asking this actually, but I'm asking, are they still a wagon?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Elaborate on that, Binksy.
So looking over that last 6 games straight, right? 5 straight losses and an overtime loss. Against the Islanders, lost 4-6. Rangers overtime loss 3-4. Dallas 1-4. Philadelphia 1-2. Florida 2-4, and Carolina 1-4. What stands out to me in this is that they are still winning the shots for versus shots against. Yep. They are still winning in puck possession metrics. What they aren't doing is stopping the puck. They are getting
Yep.
scored on in droves. So I feel like it has a bit more to do with goalies that we didn't necessarily believe in coming into the season that convinced us in the first 20 games that have fallen off a bit, right?
Yep.
So that's been my major concern. The previous two wins to that were Chicago and Philadelphia. So even in the game before that, when they lost in OT to Nashville. So it's been a bad stretch over a 10-game period, not just these 6 games.
Yep.
And the games that they won weren't barn burner wins. And we're talking about, bottom 4, bottom 5 teams. So
Yep.
let's go a little bit deeper into the metrics, though. What do you got?
So I took a look just at team metrics, and they have over that span of those 6 games, they have the second worst PDO in the league over this span. So a 7.29% shooting percentage and an 876 team save percentage, which is just brutal. Vitek Vanacek has really plummeted back down to earth, which is unfortunate because he seemed like he was a solid option there. They are over that span, they were second in the league in Corsi for percentage, so still generating shots, like Binksy said, still generating more than the opposite team, and 13th in the league in expected goals for percentage. So that has dipped a bit. So what I see from that is they're still firing pucks at the net, but the chances aren't as dangerous. They're not getting to the same places where they were before. Where they were scoring a ton of goals. So that's a factor. They're not their chances aren't as dangerous as they were when they were red hot. But I simply think I think their luck's going to turn around here a little bit. Hopefully, they really need their goaltending situation to stabilize, though. It had stabilized for a bit, mostly because really great team defense and just having the puck the entire game. But yeah, if your goalie is dog shit, you're still going to lose. So it doesn't matter how good of a team you are. So they need someone to stop 20 pucks a game. That's all they need, like 20 shots. And I don't know. Hopefully Vanacek will figure it out. You got Mackenzie Blackwood that made an appearance in the last game in relief. He's back healthy. I don't know. His numbers. I looked at his numbers recently in the AHL in his conditioning stint, and they were not good. They were
that was kind of glaring, wasn't it?
About equally as bad as they have been in the NHL this year. So not a good sign for Blackwood. So I don't know. Maybe Akira Schmid is the guy. He's been okay. I think New Jersey is a prime candidate to acquire a goalie at the trade deadline, maybe a James Reimer or a John Gibson or someone like that.
Okay.
I think that New Jersey needs that because it would be a shame if they faltered this year because of bad goaltending, because they've been very strong.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's just a few things to note before we move on in the news and notes, to be redundant. 2 out of 17 in their power play opportunities in this 6-game slide, right? So not converting even when they are getting the high danger chances that they've been missing on. And it's a super young team, right? Like, we were all surprised by how good they were. They're going to be streaky. They're just a very young team. That's what happens with young players. My concern in the immediate is the next 5-game stretch, right? I don't know if it's going to turn around immediately, because these next 5 games at Florida, a home back-to-back against Boston, at Pittsburgh, and then at home against Carolina. So they're moving all up and down the coast against some of the best teams in the league. So I'm curious to see what happens against this premium level opposition in the next 5 games, if they're gonna turn it into a 4-1 stretch, or if they're gonna split it, or if they're just gonna keep nosediving. It's a little bit concerning for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping they figure it out, because they were a fun team to watch during that long stretch where they were winning almost every game. So Jacob Chychrus, this is a guy that we haven't really been talking about, have we, in the fantasy hockey community? I don't think we have. Granted, I haven't been
touched
listening
on it a bit with his return from injury versus what was going to happen with Gostisbehere.
Right.
And I think that I was a little bit heavier on this being the result, but I definitely didn't see this coming.
No, yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, I haven't been listening to as much fantasy hockey podcasting lately. Just haven't had as much time. But yeah, I mean, he has 13 points in 14 games so far this year. He's been almost a point per game defenseman. He's been getting peripherals, getting shots. Looking at his underlying numbers, he's fourth in the league in terms of fourth in defenseman in shots per 60, sixth in defenseman in individual Corsi 4 per 60, and sixth in individual scoring chances 4 per 60. So those rate stats are elite. They're right up there with the best in the league. And I didn't even filter out guys that have only played one game, that just had one amazing game. So like, he's probably even higher than that if you limit it to like minimum 10 games played or something like that. So Chychrun's been awesome, and that on a really, really bad and offensively anemic Arizona team that everyone's saying, oh, they're better than we expected, but we expected them to be the worst team in the league, and they're not. Right, because of Karel Vejmelka, because Vejmelka's
Pretty
actually
much.
a good goalie. That's really the only reason. So yeah, I mean, Chychrun's been really great. I wonder if he's motivated to up his value to make it a little bit easy, make teams a little bit more interested in trading for him. That could be a factor. But Arizona, I mean, he's been their top fantasy player since he's been back, like in pretty much all formats.
So, I mean, the IPP for him in these games since returning has been either 50% or 100%, which I think says a lot more about the Coyotes than it does him in particular.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to cold water these rate stats for him offensively, he's got 2 goals on sub-6 shooting percentage, even with this massive amount of shots per 60, right? And the points that he's getting, a bulk of them in the 13 points are assists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only 2 goals in this. And 4 of them were first assists. So 6 second assists. So he's a part of it. He's a big part of why they're scoring, but he's not kind of the zenith as to the points on the ice, right? So that's
Sure.
a bit concerning. I absolutely think he and the team are trying to up his trade value, although personally, I wonder, can it really get any higher? Like, teams are going to be trading on, who he can be, not really who he has been as of late or even in this immediate recency.
Yeah, the stories that I had heard were, I mean, his trade value seemingly couldn't get much lower when he was out with an injury, because last year he only played half the season because of various injuries, and they didn't put him in a position to succeed, really. They weren't playing him very much. He wasn't playing on the top power play, and he just didn't perform the way that he did in the previous season, where he had that breakout year in the shortened season where he scored like 20 goals or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like it was weird. And then Arizona supposedly was asking for the sun and moon for this guy in a trade, and it's like why are you expecting teams to give you that much when you're not even putting him in a position to succeed, and he's been injured for a year and a half? Like what do you expect? What do you expect teams to expect from this guy? But he's proven that he's a player still, so that's great, and I will eat shit for that. I fully expected him to, because of how outspoken he's been about wanting a trade, to just kind of fold over and be like, fuck this, and feel sorry for himself. But no, he's been playing. He's been playing very well. So good on you, Jacob Chychrun. I couldn't think of a more clever.
No, I think that works. I think that works. Very,
let's move on.
Very earnest. It feels very you.
What do you got for us?
You're gonna eat shit, and good on you, I guess. So I'm just gonna run through a few bullet pointed injury notes, out juries, as they're called in the Keeping Karlsson podcast.
That is my favorite.
It's a great term,
by the way. I love.
Yeah, it's a great term. It really works for me. It's very It's very like organic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is close to home. Earlier today, Stars GM Jim Nill announced Dennis Gurianov has been granted an indefinite leave of absence from the team due to family reasons. So nobody knows what that means. What it does mean is that the Stars don't have to feel guilty about cementing him on the fourth line. So we'll see what happens on that second line right wing in his absence. But I hope things work out for him and his family and everything goes well. Hampus Lindholm has been swapped with McAvoy on the Bruins' top power play.
Interesting.
That is very interesting. He's been doing well in that stead. I'm curious to see how that works out and what the reasoning shakes out for that to be. I have a few theories, but I'll save them for some real stuff. Speaking of injuries, the Leafs are using a 5-forward power play, boosting Michael Bunting's prospectus. So maybe we're back on the point per game train. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. He's been
Maybe. He's
awesome
been
lately.
super hot. Yeah, it's been super hot. Very much a whole player. Likely related to Rasmus Sandin having a recent neck injury. There was no status given for the severity of that thus far. Did you hear anything from beat writers from Toronto media about exactly what that is?
Nothing. No, nothing specific. I haven't heard any timeline situations. But back to Michael Bunting. Did you see his snipe on Vasilevsky last night? Holy
No, but I'm
shit.
gonna look that
That
up.
was I did not know he could do that. It was like
I did know he could do that.
no screen in front of the goalie. It was from the high slot. Just Nylander fed him. No one was on him. And he just clapped a one-timer top corner. I was like, oh my God, that was I
Sexy.
mean, like most of his goals come from right in front of the net, just working hard and out muscling a D-man and grabbing a rebound or finishing off a 2-on-1 with Marner or Matthews. But that was a legitimate snipe. It was nice.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. That makes me feel good. Let's see. Jakub Vrana has returned from the NHL PA assistance program and is officially cleared for contact in practice.
Love it.
His designation as of today is day-to-day. So we'll see where that goes. But an interesting turn of events when there was complete radio silence for a couple of months on that.
Absolutely.
Especially prudent with Bertuzzi being hurt again. So Patches is still practicing in a non-contact jersey. They do not expect him back anytime soon, but that is, a noted recent development. In a similar fashion, Anthony Duclair skated this week for the first time since surgery in July. Paul Maurice quoted as saying he's weeks, not months, from returning to the team. So excellent timeline news for him. Definitely a player to put on your watch list and keep tabs on. I think more importantly for most people, Josh Norris sheds the non-contact jersey.
Man.
So still scheduled to be reevaluated after Christmas. Still a possible surgery. They want to see how he responds, but it's super weird to me that they want to see how he responds after Christmas, and before Christmas, they're putting him out there to
they're letting him get contact.
So I guess they're letting him take contact in practice, under a closed door and see how he responds to teammates hitting him. I don't see the reasoning behind that except for them to kind of find out where he's at without having to risk anything. But at least they're doing it. It's better than them going straight to the surgery.
Totally.
Tom Wilson practiced today in a full contact jersey for the very first time this year. So banger monster Tom Wilson is back on the radar.
I have him in my in the dynasty league that we're in. So the Bangers Cats one. So I'm pretty stoked about that, baby. It's hit time.
I am rostering Josh Norris and Ehlers in that league.
And, are you really?
There are just not enough IR spots for my team in that.
Yeah,
league.
that needs to be
dying.
Yeah, that's totally my bad.
I am absolutely dying in the
I think we're definitely going to be changing some settings in that league in the off season.
It is sell time in that league, buddy. Let's move to the 0G check-in.
All right, man. So just a few things to touch on. This isn't really a 0G as I mean, the way that I define it in my articles as being like goalies that are sub 50% rostered in Yahoo that you could very easily obtain. But if looking at the Florida situation, I'm wondering if they're leaning towards Bobrovsky again. There's been a lot of talk about this. Spencer Knight was out with an injury, but they played Bobrovsky for a bit. Spencer Knight came back. They were still playing Bobrovsky. I'm just trying to look at the results tonight. Okay, so New Jersey has scored 3 on him. He's made 29 of 32 saves, so still pretty solid performance. Mackenzie Blackwood, by the way, 33 of 35 saves against Florida. He started tonight. That's very interesting for New Jersey. But anyways, moving on. So moving on to Bobrovsky. In his previous 3 games, he had a 938 save percentage in one, a 921, and a shutout in his last 3 starts. Spencer Knight returned from injury. He had his first start the other night against Boston and allowed 7 goals on 26 shots, which is just not pretty at all. And it was on a night where Florida, in terms of like underlying stats and possession, really outplayed the Bruins. So that really hurt them. So I wonder if they're leaning towards Bob. Obviously, he got the next start. He's playing pretty solid against New Jersey, who really needs a win. So that's a situation definitely to keep an eye on, because Bobrovsky has appeared on a lot of waiver wires over the last little while.
I've been picking him up in droves across leagues.
Yeah.
Where coincidentally I'm rostering a lot of Vanacek. So
yeah, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all, for sure. Elvis Merzlikins is hurt again, and Daniil Tarasov played back-to-back nights. So clearly they're not super stoked about their 4th string goalie. I don't know who it is, but they don't trust him to make a start. So Tarasov has been playing heavily, played really well against Dallas in a losing effort the other night. But I mean, I don't know if you're really that interested in streaming Columbus goalies, but if you're in a really deep league,
you're really hard up if you're trying to stream Columbus.
But Tarasov is going to get some starts. So if you're interested, keep an eye on that.
If you're interested, I got a bridge in Arizona to sell you.
Jacob Markstrom has 5 straight starts, and he's won the last 2. I think we can close the book on Dan Vladar stealing the starting job, at least for now. So all those people that have streamed Vladar probably want to drop him. I don't think he's getting a start anytime soon. Phoenix Copley stopped 24 of 25 against the Ducks the other night. So had another solid performance. Lucas Dostal for the Ducks, who I also mentioned in my article, stopped 37 of 41 in the loss for Anaheim. So he's still...
I watched that game in entirety. He looked excellent against them. And he got bombed. Like, it was not a great game for the team.
Yeah,
he was all over the place.
He's been holding his own. So that's an interesting. I mean, if you're in a league where the goals against penalties aren't too heavy, and saves are a pretty heavy weight, he's a guy definitely to take a look at.
And he's got 0 competition right now for them.
He really doesn't. Yeah, Stolars and Gibson are both hurt. Actually, I just got an update on Gibson. He is still out, so Dostal starting again tonight. Eric Comrie as well, you said, was upgraded from week to week to day to day. So, and these are notes from Binksy. I didn't actually know this, but his knee injury was expected to keep him out for 4 weeks, and it's been 4 weeks. So,
yeah, it's a bit concerning. Eric Comrie. Goalies with a knee injury, but UPL has not been the dude. So
he's been inconsistent. He's been okay. He's been pretty good at times, but hasn't been super steady. I don't know if part of that is just Buffalo not being incredible on defense and outscoring their problems. But I mean, Buffalo's been winning a lot lately. They've made themselves relevant, and they're right back in the playoff race. So I definitely interested in a Buffalo goaltender if they're going to get consistent starts.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird being really high on a 41-year-old goalie that plays for the Sabres.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Is it seems like they're not interested in giving Craig Anderson giving him a run. He kind of starts a game. He either alternates evenly with the other goalie, or the other goalie plays 2 out of 3, and he plays the other game. He's performed better than both Comrie and UPL, but they're just I'm not certain. I don't know if they're just saving him because he's old.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty easily cemented that they're just kind of keeping him fresh for as long as possible.
Yeah, totally. But then at the same time hoping one of either Comrie or UPL grabs hold and takes that starting job. So
this time last month, I was completely convinced that it was going to be UPL's job to lose.
Yeah.
And with Comrie getting hurt, and it just hasn't panned. Like, he's super up and down, and Buffalo really needs somebody consistent. 41 years old, consistent.
Yeah, totally. So keep an eye on Buffalo. All right, let's get into that mailbag. So we got a lot of mailbag questions, mostly because we wanted to do lots of mailbag because we didn't have a ton to talk about otherwise. So the Pork Man asks, what do we do with Huberdeau? I'm mashing X to doubt that Oilers legend Milan Lucic is the answer. Yeah, you know what? I think
is that a video game reference? I was wondering if that was.
I think
a typo.
so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Totally.
All right.
Yeah, because I saw that they put Huberdeau on line 2 with Kadri and Lucic, and I'm like, that is an
and
interesting...
Lucic has been scoring. Like, what
has he been? Oh yeah, he did score. Yes, he did score. Yeah, that was his first
more
of the
than
season.
Once.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I missed that then.
I know.
Wow,
weird.
Missed out on a Lucic stream this week. Damn.
I guess when you're on a line with that much talent, though, they got to defer to the other side of the ice. So
yeah, Kadri's been heating up again. He's been pretty solid, but I don't know. What do you think about Huberdeau, man?
It's just such an excellent player. Like, the talent level is we're talking top 20 in the league at any position, right? So I just could not be convinced now or later or at any point in this season that he isn't an elite level player in the league. 1 goal, 8 assists in the last 10 games, so nearly point per game. 12 shots total, though, in 10 games at 8.3%. So that's pretty nasty. Only 16:49 average time on ice. So that sounds terrible, right? For a top level player. But when I tell you the stats for the entire season, you're going to be like, oh, that doesn't seem so bad in retrospect. Over 30 games played, 5 goals and 17 assists. But again, only 50 shots at 10%, right? So just not trying to put the puck in the net, but only 17:08 average time on ice, right? So you're thinking to yourself, over the last 10 games, sub 17, but over the entire season, just a tick over 17. So it makes you wonder why they're not deploying him more and why he is not personally shooting the puck more when he is on the ice. So with such an important addition that they've brought in, it takes time to gel, but at the same time, you are not even in an argument. You are absolutely the best player on the team. You're absolutely the best offensive talent on the team. You got to shoot the puck more, right? So what do you do with him? There's nothing you can do with him. You can't sell low. You don't want to sell low. It's an excellent team that he's on. He's an excellent player. You just have to expect more. And I'm grasping at straws for reasons that you can't expect more from him.
Yeah, I don't think you can sell low. I think you kind of just got to hope that he figures it out. That this Calgary team, I mean, is it chemistry issues? There's a lot of new pieces. I don't know. I don't know there. I mean, Huberdeau, the problem with, his numbers aren't terrible in terms of counting stats over the last 10 games and over the entire season. They're not terrible, but when you drafted him, I mean, some people drafted him in the first round, second round. You're drafting him as a guy that's going to push for 100 points, kind of like he did last year, and like he'd been doing. I mean, he'd been 90-point pace previously in his career, so I mean, it's not unreasonable to expect him to to score a point per game. He's just not doing it. Mind you, last year he had 85 assists, so a lot of passing to Barkov, a lot of passing to Sam Reinhart, a lot of just high efficiency scoring on the power play. So I think there was probably some negative regression to come, and then just lack of chemistry. I mean, you really just hope they figure it out. But yeah, he's got to shoot the puck more, man. Like this is a guy they're paying him. They're going to be paying him $10 million after this year. So it's I mean, it's a tough situation, but I mean, I wouldn't want to risk trading him at this point. If you haven't already offloaded him, trading him at a low, and then him potentially figuring it out. So for me, and again, I've said this many times, I'm super conservative in terms of trades in fantasy hockey. I'm probably holding on and hoping for the best, and that's probably not the answer you're looking for. But that's my opinion, and it sounds like Binksy's on the same page.
Absolutely.
Skateful Dead asks, do you have a World Juniors tradition? The tournament is as much a piece of my holiday break as turkey and gifts. So I'd like to hear from you, Binksy, because in Canada, and specifically Bell Media and TSN, the World Juniors is a huge deal. Like it's an event every single year. It has been for as long as I can remember. So a lot of people get together and watch the World Juniors, but I get the impression that it's not really the same in other countries. I feel like the World Juniors is a big deal for Canada and not so much for everyone else. Is that true?
You are absolutely correct. I would make the direct comparison to the FIBA and the basketball Olympics, right? Like the U.S. cares about it a lot.
Yeah.
Or even like the U.S. Women's National Soccer Club, right?
Yep.
The Americans care about that because we destroy people in it. And it's fun to watch your colors just go wild over the rest of the world in the like the highest possible cup, right?
Yeah.
So as a country, no, people don't care. What people care about over the Christmas break in the States are the Christmas basketball games. Like that's what people
Christmas
watch.
Day games. Yeah.
Me personally, I usually get on a call or text with my dad, who is Canadian, all day long when Canada plays the US in the tournament, because that's usually how it shakes out. And we talk a lot of smack about that. But I, of course, am half Canadian, and I am always rooting for Canada, provided they're not playing the US. And secretly, I root for Canada too. I just like talking smack to my dad. So do I have a tradition for the tournament? No, but I did want to enlighten you all on what my tradition is when I am watching junior hockey in person, because I feel like it is the most possible fun. I am totally cognizant of the fact that a good 70% of these guys are not going to be like international stars in junior hockey. But I love chirping them like they are. I really, really love to go to junior level hockey and just choose a player, generally not one that is a star, right? And then just make fun of them all game long, really, really loudly, because that's what I enjoy doing at sporting events. I don't get hammered. I don't like say mean things to them, but I'll tell them they stink literally, and that their friends don't really like them, and they should probably just hang their skates up and or burn them, things like that. Really,
there you go.
Really like deeply insightful, painful stuff. And truly only because I think that's the most fun you can have at a junior hockey level game.
Yeah, that sounds maniacal.
It is. It's really wrong, but I have fun.
That's all right. I think in terms of World Juniors traditions for me, I feel like I did more when I was younger. Boxing Day is always when it starts. That's typically when we go up to my grandparents' place in Grey County. My dad grew up on a farm up there, a dairy farm, and we typically go up there for Christmas on the 26th. And then that is usually the day where Canada plays either Norway or Denmark or somebody like that and win like 15-0. So usually that game's on, but no one's really watching it that intently because it's like it's a joke. But I do remember in high school getting together with buddies for New Year's parties, and typically that's when Canada usually plays the US, or it's usually like a bigger game on New Year's, a more intense matchup from the round robin. And those were always a lot of fun. I specifically remember the one year where I think John Tavares and PK Subban were playing for Canada, and they played
Nice.
the US. US went up 3-0 early in the game, and then Canada came back and won. And I can remember that one very, very distinctly, being at a New Year's party and watching that one. But yeah, I mean, of late, I mean, COVID has happened, so I haven't gotten together with as many people, and the World Juniors just hasn't happened at normal time. So this is kind of this is unfamiliar territory again. I feel like I need to make new traditions. My daughter Alea is gets really excited about hockey when it's on the TV. I've kind of got her conditioned, I think, but I think she naturally just likes watching it. But she'll at around 6:30 every night, she'll be like, hockey, and she'll point at the TV like, why don't we have hockey on? So that's pretty fun. So maybe I'll watch a few Canada games with her, but start some new traditions here. Big guy in the house 29 asks what to do with JT Miller or Dominic Kubalik. What do you think about Miller and Kubalik?
So, tale of two players for me. JT Miller is an absolute hold for me. I think he is, as of late, giving you the production that you can expect. Just doesn't feel that way because he hasn't been scoring goals. Over the last 10 games, only 6 assists, 23 shots at 0%. 20.06 average time on ice and still giving you 3+ hits per game. Not really blocking, and hasn't taken faceoffs since way early in the season. So not the multi-category coverage monster that we've come to expect over recent seasons. But in the total season, 11 goals and 16 assists in 31 games played. So right up there with a point per game pace. 72 shots at 15%. So more shots, standard shooting percentage, and a 20-50 average time on ice. So he's getting the same deployment. There were the early season faceoff wins that are no longer happening, but the team is chock full of offensive talent. They're super up and down with the actual success of the team, but for fantasy relevance, these are a bunch of successful fantasy players. I'm actually really happy with JT Miller overall. What's only really upsetting to you, I think, as a fantasy manager, is that there are so many other centers out there that are giving you excellent production kind of just out of the shadows, right? So you're looking at Miller versus these players and going, I feel like I should be starting Miller, but the production hasn't matched that.
He has been given buy and I think try eligibility in some leagues. So that's definitely worth noting too. He's become a little more versatile because they haven't been playing him at center all the time. So the part of the reason he's not getting faceoffs. But yeah, I think Miller, he's doing Miller things, right? Like he's not like, I don't think any of the underlying numbers or his shot numbers are pretty much the same. It just seems like he's going through a bit of a dry spell right now. So I'm not too worried about JT Miller, especially if he's still hitting like that. I mean, there's been a lot out on Twitter about, stuff that I didn't actually know about him, in that he is really terrible on defense, like just like one of the worst players in the league on defense. And there's been a lot of clips of him where he just completely gives up on a play and you're like, whoa, it's like his controller shut off in NHL, and he's just like, oh fuck, whatever.
For those of you counting, that is our third video game reference this episode.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's the Christmas season. We're playing a lot of video games, I guess. Yeah, I mean, he's so I don't know how, and there's a lot of toxicity in the Vancouver dressing room. There's been a lot of little things that have come out about that. So, and it seems like JT Miller might be kind of in the middle of that. That might be a bit of a hot take, but I have heard a few things.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to be affecting him too much. I just wonder as the season goes on. I don't know. I don't think it's something that you should be too concerned about, but something to keep in the back of
It
your mind.
does have to be frustrating and great on everybody in the locker room to be losing in such awful fashion over and
Yeah,
over and over and over and
yeah,
over again. Yeah.
totally.
Kubalik, on the other hand, has really fallen off a cliff. 1 goal and 3 assists in the last 10 game played, 21 shots over 10 games at 4.8%, 16.23 average time on ice. In the entire season at 31 games, 10 goals, 16 assists, right? So a monster in the early season, 82 shots at 12.2%. So that is including the last 10 games. So you can only imagine those first 21 games, right? Noteworthy, over 31 games, also 16.23 average time on ice. So I checked the shifts reports of the last 10 games, also really steady. 3 power play points in the last month. So not great for him. I think as much as we know exactly what's happening with Detroit, things are again in flux, right? Bertuzzi going down, Brana coming back. Um, who knows what's happening with Larkin right now, right? So there are a lot of things moving around with the team that aren't necessarily like strategy and management related. Um, but earnestly, I think Kubalik just kind of is the player that we thought he was. I don't really see this as a cold streak. I think it's just him coming back to who he is as a player. But that is my personal estimation of him. I know there's a lot of people out there that disagree with that.
Yeah, I think we talked earlier in the year when he was on that hot streak about how it seemed pretty unsustainable if he were to get pushed down the lineup again. And yeah, I mean, I'm not super surprised. So if I'm if I had been rostering Kubalik, if he's got a bad schedule, I'm probably streaming him out. Because you probably didn't pay a lot for him in the first place, anyways, right? Like he wasn't drafted in a lot of leagues, or at least very low in a lot of leagues. So, um, in my opinion, I'd probably be dropping him fairly soon.
I dropped him while he was in the midst of the hot streak, kind of expecting this. And,
Yeah,
we're talking about a player that's gotten bumped down to line 3 for players like Michael Rasmussen and Adam Ernie. So,
yeah, that's
like,
gross.
it's, I think the team knows exactly what they have in him as well.
Yep.
I'm not expecting it to go anywhere near it where it was in, say, the first 15 games of the season.
Yeah, he's a guy that can fill in when needed, but he's not a consistent top six guy. Oli one Kenobi. What's up with Bratt? Are his contract negotiations bothering him? And then New Jersey in general, Hughes, Heischer, Bratt, etc. Because New Jersey's been cold. You did a bit of digging on New Jersey here.
I did this specifically about Bratt because I knew we were going to talk pretty heavily about New Jersey earlier in the
Yeah,
show. So this is just specifically about Bratt. In the last 10 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 22 shots at 9%, 17.43 average time on ice. Over the entire season in 32 games, 10 goals, 21 assists, 78 shots at 12.8%, and 17.21 average time on ice. The deployment is the same. The overall team production is what's taken a hit recently. Um, the shooting percentage, I think, is in an easily recognized range, right? Like I'm not
yeah,
especially worried about a 3 to 4% drop on that.
yeah,
What's most concerning is their production as a team, specifically to the question: are his contract negotiations bothering him? GM Tom Fitzgerald says talks with Bratt's agent started in November, and there's been no change to what the two parties are looking for, right?
yeah,
So the team did very well across November, and that was middle to late November when those contract negotiations started and when they were admitting that they were starting, right? So the team wants to lock him up at a certain rate over a long period. He wants more money over a shorter rate so that he can capitalize again on his contract. The Devils only have a few players locked up already and their premier talent. Fitzgerald has talked at length about wanting to get a more team friendly contract so that they can continue to build a contending lineup. So Are the contract negotiations bothering him? I don't think so, just based on when at least they admitted to the talks picking back up. Um, I think it's just the production has fallen off a bit since the beginning of the talks, but the team as a whole has been in a slump recently, right? I don't think it's Brat
Yep.
specifically that's doing that.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add there. I'm pretty on board with what you're saying. Reese's Pieces asks, who are your biggest regret drops? You said before the show couldn't really think of any, which is a bit of a pat on your back there.
Unfortunately, it's not as much of a it's more of a bronze star than it is a gold star. Pardon the military reference, because most of my teams I am holding too long on players that should have probably been dropped for streaming candidates, but the players that I have added are really quality talent, and I haven't bitten the bullet and dropped a player that I felt really good about that bit me in the ass. What has bit me in the ass is that I did not drop enough players, and I am rather than streaming an excellent schedule and picking up the extra points, I am continuing to roster players like Dylan Cousins and etc. that have massive amounts of talent and are playing well, but may not necessarily have the best slate that week or that end of week.
Yeah,
So
for me, it's
my
Trevor
regret is
Moore.
I'm not dropping.
Yeah, that's fair. Mine would be Trevor Moore. I thought a lot about this. I didn't draft him in any leagues, but he has been a pickup of mine in almost every league that I've had. And when LA had a bad schedule, I dropped him pretty much across the board, and I probably should have held on, especially in some of the deeper leagues. Like the Cupful specifically is a deeper league. It's a 14 team. Each division is 14 teams with 2 extra skater spots than a typical roster. So the free agency pool is not.
It's very thin.
It's pretty thin. So Trevor Moore is a pretty valuable guy, and I should have held on to him. He's also now try eligible, which is sweet. But Nate talked about it. He's like top 12 in the league in shots, which is crazy. Not even rate stats, like counting stats. Like he's shooting the puck a lot
on a team full of shooters.
On a team full of shooters, yeah. So he is he's been very good this year, especially in leagues that really value shots. So which the Cacuffle is. So yeah, a bit of a regret there. Skateful Dead got another question here. Who isn't getting the respect they deserve in terms of perceived value by other fantasy GMs? And on the flip side, whose brand name is inflating their fantasy value most? I've got it. I mean, in terms of, I guess this is kind of like an underrated, overrated situation. So in terms of overrated, I think Jonathan Taves is still overrated. And that's with like a huge drop off. I think he gets streamed a ton when Chicago has a good schedule, and he doesn't do much in terms of fantasy. Doesn't bring anything peripherally, doesn't really shoot the puck, hasn't been scoring points, but people still are picking him up. And like, I think you just gotta leave Chicago alone. I don't really care how good their schedule is, just don't touch them. What do you think, Binksy?
My underrated players are almost virtually rookies, actually.
Okay.
Michelli is supremely underrated. Perfetti is underrated. I think Jack Quinn is massively underrated. These are obviously super young dudes. They're going to be highs and lows in their season, but the deployment for all 3 of them has been quite good recently. Perfetti all season long. I think they're phenomenal players whose ceiling is really, really, really high. And if things break right for them, they could, all be award candidates. So I think people being scared of their floor has kept them away, but the ceiling is so high for me that it's something that I pay a lot of attention to. But I really, really love being right about young dudes. So I'm more in tune with rookies and second year players than anything else. As far as overrated, man, There's just so many players out there, but the first one that jumps in my mind, John Klingberg, right? We talked about him being dropped
Yeah.
6 weeks ago. We talked about him being dropped 4 weeks ago. Rogers talked about him being a drop over at 5-hole in the last 2 episodes for them. It's just fucking baffling that people continue to roster this dude. And last night he got just turnstiled so badly that I was like, how is this dude still collecting money in the NHL? It's absurd. Like,
Yeah.
I just can't believe it. I just don't get it.
Yep. Totally on board with that. You know that I brought him up a couple of times on this podcast, but I guess I didn't say an underrated. Mine would probably be Trevor Moore. We'll bring it back to him again. He, I mean, for all the reasons that I said for the previous question. Gugs asks, what do you guys think of Scott Lawton for a Bangers Cats with face-off? He's a top 100 player because of his great coverage on the right side of the stat sheet, and I feel like nobody realizes multi-eligibility too. So he takes like 15 face-off wins on your left wing. Yeah, man. I mean, I think you kind of said it after your question there. Great on face-offs, great on peripherals, chips in offensively every now and again. That's all I really got to say about Scott Lawton. So yeah, in leagues where those categories are there, yeah, he's a valuable guy. I still at the low end of your lineup, but
I feel like there are probably better options out there for multi-category coverage on better teams with a coach you can rely on with deployment, right? Torts will bench anybody for any reason. The Flyers will suck largely. And more than that, especially in a wide category coverage league, like take a player and win a certain category with them in your streaming spot rather than trying to get 15 face-off wins from your left wing. You know what I mean? And more than that, it's pretty recent stuff that he is winning face-offs for them. So I don't necessarily believe in the long-term viability of him doing that, given that there are going to be players coming back for Philadelphia in the pretty immediate future.
That being said, if you're streaming him in and out, he's probably going to be available.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
so
nobody. You're absolutely right. He's a hidden gem. Nobody's
he could just be a go-to guy for you in your league. So keep streaming that guy when Philly's got a good schedule,
especially with Jenner out for a while now.
Yep, there you go. E. Jonesman, is there any difference between Hagel, DeBrusk, and Raquel? This was an interesting question because I understand why you're asking it. They're all guys that are getting this opportunity on line one, power play one, that are clearly playing with players that are above their caliber, but are playing with them and playing well. So all of them are producing. Hagel in Tampa, Jake DeBrusk with Bergeron and Marchand, and then Rickard Raquel obviously with Crosby and Gensel, and then on power play one. And he's played really well since landing on power play one. But Binksy mentioned before the podcast started, it seems like Brandon Hagel, and I agree with you on this, it seems like Brandon Hagel probably has the most solidified spot on that top line, because DeBrusk is sometimes replaced by Pasternak, and Raquel is sometimes replaced by Rust, but Rust has been kind of brutal this year. I think Hagel probably has the safest spot, and in my opinion, he has the most room for growth. He has the most room to get better because he's the youngest of the three, and just has the most untapped potential, has the least experience, but is producing pretty similarly. So if I'm probably taking a chance on Hagel, and he's probably the easiest to acquire out of the three of them, to be honest.
Yeah, probably.
I think the least rostered of those three. So I'm probably liking Hagel a little more, but yeah, they're all very close. What do you think, man? I guess I've already said what you think, but you can elaborate more if you want.
That's true. Took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. No, I think that's really spot on. What I said through your mouth. in a vacuum, I like DeBrusque the most. His highs are the highest, right? When all three of these guys who have been proven to be streaky, high percentage shooters go on high streaks, DeBrusque has had that like highest peak.
Yep.
In terms of who I like best um, over the entire season, Raquel has the best playoff schedule available in Pittsburgh. So maybe that's a player that you're more interested in the later term of the season. But if I just had to pick one to hold right now, Hagel definitely seems the most cemented to me. And he's, I think, in my eyes, probably playing with the absolute best scoring talent. Just being one on part of a three line. So
Yep. Yeah, but it's it is very close between the three of them. You can't really go wrong with anyone.
So I'm going to throw a curveball before we move on.
Yeah.
These three or Bunting?
I'm probably that's hard
Because I feel like we're talking about the same thing again.
Yeah, very similar. Man, I feel like I believe in.
I want you to say it.
I feel like I believe in these guys more, to be honest, than Bunting. I know.
Ouch.
I know. I'm sorry. But he is playing very well. He's playing at a similar level. Man, I don't know, man. I feel like these guys all have more upside in terms of offense on their own than Bunting does. That's my opinion.
I believe in Bunting, but it is the season to believe,
Yeah, that's fair. I believe in Bunting too. It's just this is a tough position to put me in.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Gain reach. Any tips on how to wrap gifts properly? No matter how hard I try, I suck. My wife wraps all our gifts. So
guilty. Yes.
Yeah.
My wife also wraps all of our gifts. She won't let me wrap them.
Man, it's a nice part of the deal in this marriage. She does a lot of the gift ideas as well, which is super handy because I'm terrible at buying gifts for people. I am just the worst. So
I'm a size one fits all in Apples and Geno's hat.
Yeah. Yeah. So not really any tips here. What do you said your wife does the same?
My wife actually has taken away my allowance to wrap gifts. Like she was like, help me. And I was like, okay. And I tried and she was like, that's not, her OCD was like, that's not going to work for me.
That's
so I help her shop for the gifts. I help her shop for the wrapping paper. I have great design ideas. I'm an idea guy. The execution,
and then you're like, you do it.
On the other hand, my grandmother is a phenomenal gift wrapper, and she taught me how to tie bows. So I do help with the bows.
Oh, very nice.
But honestly, this is a show for the people. Gain reach. I earnestly Googled like five tips for your wrapping paper, and it was like looking at hieroglyphics. Like, I'm not even going to try and bullet point that stuff for you. My advice to you is get a wife who won't allow you to wrap things, or do what I did before I had said wife, and that is buy gift bags and tissue paper, my man.
Yeah.
It looks phenomenal. You have to do almost zero work. And
that's the best.
And or take your gifts to a place and literally pay people to wrap them, because there are some things in life that are worth paying for, like I don't know, wet wipes. They're just small expenses in your life that make your life so much better. And paying people to wrap your gifts and or marrying one is one of those things. So go and do that. That's my advice to you.
I like it. Zebra Dan is back, letting you all know that my streak is over in the 5-hole league. But he says it seems like a good week to start a new win streak. And on the contrary, I forgot to set my lineups today for the first time this year in this league. And I somehow am clinging on to the lead, but barely. I have 5 active players on the bench, and this week is not a week where you want to be losing games played like that. So that's I'm really not doing myself any favors. It's been a really busy week. I'm back at work, sleeping through the day again, and I've been very foggy, and like we've had Christmas stuff going on. We just had a Christmas dinner tonight before this show, and I don't know. I just lost it in the shuffle, unfortunately. So that's unfortunate. But he asked, what's your biggest wish fantasy wise for the second half of the season? What is your biggest wish, Binksy?
Um, my biggest wish for the second half of the fantasy season, and this is not directly related to my teams, but I would like to see Mitch Marner be the highest scoring point getter in the league this year. I firmly believe that he has the talent and the placement to be the absolute best fantasy player in hockey. And given the point streak thus far and true room to grow on top of that, like I feel like it's possible. And like I mentioned before, I do love to be right about stuff. So I'm really hopeful that that comes to fruition.
I would love that. But that is a lofty wish as long as Connor McDavid is healthy and in the league. Unfortunately, he's just obliterating everybody, all
That's true.
opponents at all times right
He
now.
really put that top three argument to bed thus far, didn't he?
Yeah, no, it's been not even close. And actually, it's funny that there's no conversation about it. No one's talking about it. Like maybe in Edmonton, but not a lot of conversation about Connor McDavid these days, even though he is dominating the league. Um, yeah, my biggest wish. So I kind of made a goal for myself that I'm in 6 leagues, and I want to make the playoffs in every single one of them. So top 6 in terms of the regular season. I am in a playoff position or just out of it. Like I'm within striking distance in one of my leagues, and the rest of them I'm in a playoff position. So I'd like to hold on to that and at least get in there. I set a pretty high standards for myself. Especially now that I'm doing a fantasy hockey podcast, I feel like I've kind of like set myself up where I'm like I need to have at least some success. So I can't bottom out. So that would be my wish, is to make the playoffs in all of my leagues this year. Fantoma asks, do you like ham, pineapple, and jalapeno pizza? If not, why not? I have never had jalapeno on a Hawaiian pizza.
Okay, I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
There is an accent. That's literally what it's called, a little symbol over the
Uh-oh.
N in the word
Jalapeno.
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 You sound like Raj saying San Jamon over here. Fantoma, I'm curious, man. Is the pizza ham, pineapple, and jalapeno, or are you just saying, do I like ham slash
Like any
pineapple
of them
slash
individually.
jalapeno on my pizzas?
Yeah.
And I am a take all comer when it comes to pizza. I like all kinds of pizza. I like Thai chicken pizza. I like buffalo mozzarella and basil. I like straight cheese. I like pepperoni. What I like is pizza. I like pizza that people just call cheese sticks. I don't even care. Pizza is absolutely amazing, top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm a big pizza guy as well. Not if it I'm not a big fan of just straight veggie. I feel like I need meat on there.
Okay,
But yeah, in terms of ham, pineapple, jalapeno,
there you go.
I mean I probably I try it for sure. I've never had
Oh,
that
it's good.
combination.
It's good.
I've had Hawaiian, I've had ham pineapple. I have no issue with it. I know some people have issues with pineapple on pizza. It's not my favorite, but I like it. It's
Yeah,
fine.
agreed.
So I would definitely try. And I'm a guy that really likes. I like hot food. I like spicy food. I'm a big hot ones guy. I
Nice.
love. I'd like to buy. They do like the box sets of the Hot Ones Gauntlet for each season, and I'd like to get one of those at some point. I have a bottle of the Bomb Beyond Insanity in my fridge, and I like to get people when they come over to try it and just like almost throw up instantly because it's so spicy. I think it's the funniest thing ever. So yeah, I'd definitely be down for that combination on a pizza for sure. Soch asks, thoughts on Devon Taves? Is he a buy low target? What do you think, Binksy?
We touched on this before we went live on the show. Devon Taves is a top line player on, barring just a rash of injuries for them, a top 3 team in the NHL, right? So there's nothing really to dislike about him. The biggest knock on him thus far is that he's been the one healthy on a team that's just been ravaged by injuries, right?
Yep,
So,
totally.
is he a buy low target? Absolutely, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, in some leagues, I've seen him in some leagues be on the waiver wire. Even I know he's
Wow,
like 90% rostered, but I have seen him there. So
that's
if you
somebody's
see him,
biggest regret drops later.
yeah, if you see him popping up there, I'd be picking him up because Colorado actually has an excellent playoff schedule near the end of the year. They have a lot of off nights and a lot of games. They're one of the teams that have played the least so far this year. So at some point they have to make those up, and for them it's at the end of the year. So you're if you have Avalanche players, you're gonna want to keep them, and also. Yeah, I think he could be a buy low candidate. I wouldn't pay too much, but yeah, I think he's a guy that people are probably itching to get rid of. So try and capitalize on that. And then our last question is from Kyle Snell. What's up with Letang? He's not getting to the Nate projection. Should we downgrade? Should I replace him with Montour? We talked about this before the pod as well. Yeah, I mean, Letang. When he came back from the stroke, he kind of came out hot. He's been getting more peripherals since he's been back, but his point production is still okay. It's not up to what we had hoped and expected from Chris Letang. But I still think that he's in a situation where he's going to play a ton of minutes. He's going to play on that lethal top power play. And he's going to have stretches where he gets a bunch of points. And in terms of fantasy defensemen, that's kind of what you hope from them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not guys that are going to be scoring every single night, and we shouldn't put them on that pedestal. I know we had Cale Makar and Victor Hedman and Roman Josi last year that did that, and Chris Letang even like he was near that echelon. But I think he's a guy that you should probably stay patient with. Yeah, what do you think, Binksy?
I think you're spot on with all of those estimations. He has been disappointing, especially in tune with Nate's projections for defensemen this year. But they, as a team, have been a bit disappointing, and we're also accounting for him having missed some games up to this point, right? So, should you downgrade? I don't think so. I believe in Chris Letang. I'm not especially concerned about his health post stroke. I don't think that they would put him out there if that were a concern.
Yeah.
I don't think he personally would go out there if that were a concern. Should you replace him with Montour? I don't even think we're talking about the same tier of player. Like,
yeah, right.
I think you'd be really upset with yourself later in the season if you replaced him with Montour. I don't think Montour is a poor option at all, but if you're replacing him, if you're replacing Letang with Montour, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And just like we mentioned with Colorado, Pittsburgh with an excellent playoff slate. So, don't put the cart before the horse with Chris Letang.
Yeah, and Letang has a safe position getting premium deployment, whereas Montour, I'm not as sure about. He has had great deployment this year, but there's also been a ton of injuries this year. So
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that he's going to keep PP1 or that he's going to play the minutes that he's playing. So as he has been great, and I think he's a guy that if you have him in your lineup, you should keep him. Or if you have a chance to acquire him for not a lot, he's a guy that, but
I would
not
definitely do that,
but not at the expense of Chris Letang. I guess that's what we're saying.
Speaking of Nate's projections,
Yeah.
I don't know if you skipped over his question on purpose.
Oh no, I actually totally missed it. So this will be our last question.
You got to turn your hat around.
Okay,
Maybe you didn't see it. Yeah, I don't know.
Nate asks, what is the age at which I can no longer wear my hat backwards? And Binksy and I have talked about this before. I'm not sure if one of us did this without noticing on a previous episode, and I'm not
Nate
sure
is
if
a
this
church
is like a
master,
shot at it.
so,
I'm starting to think that I probably did. I sometimes will like fidget and like spin my hat a little bit, so it's possible that I did that on camera. And Nate, if that was offensive to you, I apologize, but I don't give a fuck. I still think it's a fine look. It's okay.
Like I mentioned before, I grew up a huge fan of Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, I literally had a Mariner teal wall in my bedroom as a kid. Like, my dog's name is Griffey. I'm a big proponent of wearing my hat backwards. I personally don't do it very often anymore because I've got a 5 head that's beginning to stretch into a 6 head, and it's just like a. For those of you watching on YouTube, it's just a billboard of my forehead. It's really distracting for me looking at my own face in the screen. So that's why I don't do it really anymore. But with a fitted cap that covers that, you're damn right I do. So at which age can I no longer wear my hat backwards? When I'm dead. When I'm
Yeah,
dead. When I'm dead, I can no longer wear my hat backwards,
yeah,
and that's only because
maybe
my head will be pressed to something.
like
So
maybe not in my casket. But other than that, like anytime. As for you, Nate, I don't know. It's up to you, I guess.
yeah, you decide your own hat fate, Nate.
All right. That's all we got for today. Check out the Apples and Genos Discord server. Shoutouts to the band They're There for providing our music. Their Spotify link is in the episode description. Give us a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Binksy is at Binklemania. Nate is at Apples Genos. Blake is at Blake Creamer SE, and I'm at Just Josh and 41. Please practice safe stats, and Merry Christmas. Have a good one, folks.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.